Okay. Let us continue our discussion on revised corporation code pa rin. Okay, bali, ginawa ko siyang part 6. Okay, punta tayo sa power to deny preemptive right. Okay, all stockholders, ano ba yung sabihin ng preemptive right? Ang rule kasi dyan sa preemptive right, before the stocks can be issued to the public, kailangan mo na siyang i-offer sa mga existing stockholder. In order for the existing stockholder to maintain their proportionate interest in the corporation. Kaya ang rule, okay, the stockholders as a rule are entitled for preemptive right unless dineny siya sa article of incorporation or its amendment. In fact, there is a question before in the bar exam. Ang tinanong dun, okay, pwede bang i-deny ang preemptive right sa corporate bylaws? The answer of course is no. Kasi pag binasa mo ang provision dito sa section 39, sabi dyan, all stockholders of a corporation, stock corporation, okay, okay, stock corporation shall enjoy preemptive right to all issues or disposition of shares. By the way class, under yung before class ng BP 68, yung old corporation law pa, ang nakalagay doon is all issues lang. Pero under BP 68 at na-incorporate din sa RA 11232, kasama na yung disposition of shares. Kaya ang question is that, ano yung legal implication for including disposition of shares? Na-expand siya. Kasi dati, yung treasury shares, hindi kasama yan. Bakit? Kasi ang sinasabi dyan, all issues lang eh. Eh kaso, yung treasury shares kasama sa disposition of shares yan. Kaya may preemptive right din. In proportion to the respective shareholdings daw unless such right is denied by the article or its amendment. Kaya by specific provision of law, a preemptive right cannot be denied by the bare bylaws. Ang pwede lang mag-deny ng preemptive right is only the article of incorporation or its amendment. Okay, pero pwede siyang i-deny on this ground. Shares to be issued raw in compliance with law, requiring stock offering, okay, or minimum stock ownership by the public. Kaya ibig sabihin nire-required na kailangan may minimum stock ownership ang public. Pangalawa, shares to be issued in good faith with approval of stockholders representing 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. By the way, dalawa ang tinutukoy dito ha. Okay, either in exchange of property needed by the corporate purposes or pwedeng in payment of previously contracted debt. Kasi halimbawa, yung corporation merong existing obligation. Ang gusto ng corporation is settled to through issuance of stock. Meaning ibabayad or isa-settle through issuance ng stock. Ang problema, kung mag-exercise ng preemptive right, edi dapat bago ibenta sa public, i-offer muna sa existing stockholder. Hindi masaserve yung purpose. Kasi ang purpose nga, bayaran yung previously contracted debt through issuance ng stock. Or another scenario, yung pangalawa, in exchange of property needed for corporate purposes. Kasi halimbawa, si Corporation A, ang operation niya is school. Ngayon, ang problema, punong-puno na yung mga building, lahat fully utilized na. Kaya kailangan nilang construct ng another building kasi mag-o-offer sila ng another course. Ang problema, wala nang available land. Pero meron silang adjoining lot owner, kunwari kay B. Problema, nag-offer sila kay B to buy. Pero sabi ni B, sorry, not for sale. But, sabi ni B, bibenta raw niya to pag ang consideration ay shares of stock. Payag siya. Problema, pag nag-issue ng shares of stock, di dapat i-offer muna sa existing stockholder. Kasi nga may preemptive rights sila. Pwede siyang i-deny. Kasi yan ay gagamitin in exchange of property needed for corporate purposes. Pero kailangan daw ng approval ng 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Kaya pakitandaan niyo yung mga voting requirement. Okay? Paki-check ang mga voting requirement sapagkat yan ay tinatanong sa board exam. Okay, now let us proceed now sa types of bonds. Okay, ito syempre familiar na kayo. May tinatawag tayong mortgage bond. Pag mortgage bond, ito ay bonds na secured ng real property. Pag collateral trust bond naman, secured ng shares of stock ng another corporation. Etong debenture bond na tanong na yan before, I think mga 1990s. Okay? Pag debenture bond, ito yung bonds na walang collateral security. Pero pag registered bond, okay, ito raw yung bonds na requires ang registration ng name ng bondholder on the book of the corporation. Coupon bond or bearer bond, ito naman yung bond na unregistered. Okay, at yung corporation, babayaran kung sino yung holder, nung coupon. Okay, yung coupon is for payment ng interest as well as the bond itself. Okay? At ito ay pwedeng i-negotiate, of course, by delivery. Now, question, are bonds negotiable instrument? The answer is yes. Provided na comply all the requirement of Section 1. Di ba may anong requirement ng negotiable instrument? Di ba first, it must be in writing and signed by the maker or the drawer. Second, it must contain unconditional promise or order to pay a sum certain in money. Number 3, it must be payable on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time. Number 4, it must be payable to order or bearer. And last, when the instrument is addressed to a drawee, he must be named or otherwise indicated therein with reasonable certainty. Kung lahat ng requirement class ng Section 1 are present, then that is negotiable. Kasi ang test naman natin to determine whether the instrument is negotiable or non-negotiable is Section 1. Pero kung halimbawa, registered bond yan, by nature, non-negotiable yan. Because the corporation is duty-bound only to pay those person registered in the corporate book. Kaya hindi siya payable to order or bearer. Payable siya to a specified person. Convertible bonds are those which give the holder thereof the right to convert their bond holding into share capital or other securities of the issuing company within a specified period of time. Callable bonds are bonds issued whereby another party promises to make payment if the borrowing company fails to do so. Okay, junk bonds ay high-risk, high-yield bonds issued by enterprises that are heavily indebted or otherwise in a weak financial condition. Alam mo yung mga junk bonds kasi kaya siya tinawag na junk bonds. Kasi high risk high return. Because the issuing corporation is suffering financial difficulties. Siyempre kung ako naman si investor, ba't naman ako bibili ng bonds na yung issuing company is suffering financial difficulty? Malaki yung chance na mag-default yan. Pero if any, kung papayag man ako na mag-invest with respect to that bonds, dapat high return. Kaya tinawag siyang junk kasi basura eh. Kasi may chance na yung issuing corporation mag-default upon maturity. Okay, now treasury bonds are companies' own bonds originally issued and reacquired but not cancelled. Okay, term bonds are bonds with a single date of maturity. Pag serial naman, meron siyang series of maturity date. Okay, now let us proceed now sa another section. Ito naman yung yung sale, lease, exchange, mortgage, pledge, or otherwise dispose of its property and assets upon such term and condition and for such consideration which may be money, stock, bonds, or other instrument for the payment of money or other property consideration as its boards of director or trustees may deem expedient. By the way, gusto kong i-distinguish nyo dito kung yung sale ba ng asset ay all or substantially all ng corporate property. Kasi pag ang sagot mo yes, kailangan ko ng majority vote ng board of director and at least two-third, authorized na at least two-third of the outstanding capital stock. Pero kung hindi naman siya sale ng all or substantially all ng corporate property, the voting requirement is simply majority ng board of director present with a valid quorum. Hindi kailangan ng stockholders approval. Kasi hindi naman siya sale ng all or substantially all of corporate property. Kaya considered lang yan as act of management. Ordinary transaction. Kaya sabi dyan, subject to the provision of Republic Act number 10667, otherwise known as the Philippine Competition Act, and other related laws. By the way, yung Philippine Competition Act, itatanong na yan sa October 2022. Okay, marami yung dinagdag na provision of laws or topic. Okay, Government Procurement Act, Philippine Competition Act, Trust and Lend, okay? Yung FRIA, binalik. Okay, kaya wag na kayo magpaabot ng October 2022. Marami ang dinagdag. Pati labor law, sinama na. SSS law. Okay, Truth and Lending Act, sinama rin. Okay, yan, Philippine Competition Act are also or likewise included in the October 22, 2022 CPA board exam. Okay, now, ngayon, kailangan ng voting dito ng authorization ng okay, at least two-third of the outstanding capital stock. May meeting syempre to. Ayan, written notice of the proposed action and the time and place of the meeting shall be addressed to stockholder or members at their place of residence as shown in the books of the corporation and deposited to the addressee in the post office with postage prepaid or served personally. Or when allowed raw by the bylaws or done with the consent of the stockholders sent electronically. Ngayon, and dissenting his stockholders, pwede kayo mag-exercise ng appraisal rights. Kasama yan dun sa enumeration for the exercise of appraisal right. Okay? Sabi dyan, after such authorization or approval by the stockholder or members, the board of director or trustee may nevertheless in its discretion abandon such sale. By the way, class, ang gusto ko lang i-emphasize dito ganito. Pag mag-e-enter yung corporation ng sale ng all or substantially all ng corporate property, kailangan dito ng majority vote ng board of director and authorized ng at least two-third ng outstanding capital stock. Ngayon, kung na-comply na yung voting requirement and later on yung board of director nag-decide na wag nang i-pursue or ituloy yung sale ng all or substantially all corporate property, hindi na kailangan ng subsequent approval ng stockholder. Okay? Kaya nga sinasabi dito, okay, pero subject na raw siya sa right ng third parties. Kasi tandaan nyo kung meron ng perfected contract yan with third person, syempre mag-a-apply dyan yung law on contract na. Okay? Kasi yung corporation doon, nag-a-apply yan within the corporation. Pero with respect to third person, kung may perfected contract, law on contract kung mag-a-apply. Kaya pwedeng maging held liable yung corporation for damages. Pero sinasabi dito, hindi na kailangan ng further action or approval ng stockholder pagdating sa withdrawal. Kasi baka mamaya later on nag-decide yung board of director na mag-withdraw at ayaw nang i-pursue or ituloy yung sale ng all or substantially all ng corporate property, hindi na kailangan ng subsequent approval ng stockholder. And sabi dyan, no vote of the stockholder is required raw pag yan ay ordinary in the usual course of business. Ordinary transaction lang yan. And of course, the proceeds of the sale or other disposition of such property and asset be appropriated. Okay, for the conduct of its remaining business. Okay. O yan yung dalawang instances na okay, hindi kailangan ng stockholders approval. Pero malamang may question kay, Sir, kailan po siya magiging sale ng all or substantially all ng corporate property? Actually, dinefine yan sa corporation law. Sabi ng batas, considered siyang sale ng all or substantially all ng corporate property when it would render the corporation incapable daw of performing its function as stated in the article of incorporation. Sa madaling salita, kung magiging inutil na yung korporasyon kasi nga binenta yung mga asset na to, magiging incapable siya para ma-perform yung function kung bakit create yung corporation, considered siyang sale ng all or substantially all ng corporate property. Kaya nga pag binasa mo yung section 39, nakalagay yan a sale or other disposition shall be deemed to cover substantially all the corporate property and assets if thereby the corporation would be rendered incapable of continuing the business or accomplishing the purpose for which it was incorporated. Okay? Now, the determination of whether or not the sale involved all or substantially all of the corporate properties though, okay, an asset must be computed based on the net asset value as shown in its latest financial statement. Next, let us proceed now sa power to acquire own shares. Okay, sabi ng batas, the corporation daw is authorized to acquire its own share provided it must be for legitimate corporate purpose or purposes, including but not limited to the following. Ibig sabihin, yung corporation, pwede sila mag-acquire ng company's own share as long as the purpose is for legitimate corporate purpose or purposes. Pero nakalagay dyan, including but not limited. Kaya ibig sabihin, kahit hindi kasama sa enumeration dito, as long as ang purpose ng corporation ay for legitimate corporate purpose or purposes, then the corporation is authorized to acquire its own share. Provided further that the corporation has a balance of unrestricted retained earnings. Kasi ito mandatory requirement. Pag wala kayong balanse ng unrestricted retained earnings, then violation yan ng trust fund doctrine. Kaya nga di ba sa accounting nyo, pag nag-acquired kayo ng treasury stock, debit treasury shares at cost. Tapos credit kayo ng cash. Tapos may isang entry ka pa debit kayo ng unrestricted retained earnings, credit appropriated retained earnings for treasury shares. Okay? Kaya ibig sabihin, every time na mag-acquire kayo ng company's own share, dapat may balance kayo ng unrestricted retained earnings. Ang exception is redeemable shares. Kasi ang sinasabi ng batas, yung sa redeemable shares, once nag-arrive yung period of redemption indicated in the article of incorporation, then the corporation can acquire its own share or redeem its own share even in the absence of unrestricted retained earnings. Kaya lumalabas yung naka-enumerate dito sa number 1 is just a matter of an illustration. Kasi kahit hindi kasama rito, as long as ang purpose nga ng corporation ay for legitimate corporate purpose or purposes, authorize ang corporation mag-acquire ng company's own share. Tulad ng letter A, to eliminate fractional shares. Halimbawa, class, sabihin natin class ang stockholder, kunwari si A, B, C, D, E. Ang hawak ni A, B, C, D, E are as follows: 49, sabihin natin nga din, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. Biglang nag-declared ng 10% stock dividend. Okay? Lumalabas, matatanggap niya 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5. Ang problema, yung 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, hindi yan may issue hanggat hindi siya one whole share. Ang tawag dyan ay fractional shares. That's why in order to eliminate those fractional shares, then the corporation can acquire its own share. Pangalawa is to collect or compromise an indebtedness to the corporation arising out of unpaid subscription in a delinquency sale and to purchase delinquent shares sold during said sale. Okay, I give you an example. Halimbawa, nag-subscribe ka. 1 million. Okay? Sabi natin 10,000 shares. Okay? at 100. 1 million. Nagbayad ka ng down payment na 400,000 and the balance is 600,000. Ang tanong kasi, kailan babayaran yung 600,000? Answer, the balance is payable on the date fixed in the contract of subscription without need of any call coming from the board. Eh sir, paano kung walang date na nakafix sa contract of subscription? Sabi ng batas, edi upon call by the board. Let us assume na nakalagay sa contract of subscription, babayaran yung balanse ng August 20. Okay? 2020. Pagdating ng August 20, 2020, hindi nagbayad yung subscriber. Ang tanong is, the subscriber already considered as delinquent shareholders? The answer is no. Kasi meron niyang tinatawag na grace period. Okay? 30 days. Ang problema, okay, after the lapse of 30 days, hindi pa rin nagbayad yung subscriber. Doon pa lang siya i-declared as delinquent share. Ngayon, pag dineclared as delinquent shares siya, mamimili yung corporation kung anong remedy niya. Either number 1, judicial. Didemanda yan for collection of sum of money. Second is extrajudicial. Ibebenta yung delinquent shares sa public auction. Ngayon, pag in-exercise yung remedy number 2, which is the extrajudicial, at binenta yung delinquent shares sa public sale, i-offer yan sa highest bidder. Pero ang problema, kung walang highest bidder, then the corporation can acquire its own share. In that case, it becomes a treasury stock. At bago kayo mag-acquire ng treasury shares, dapat may balanse ng unrestricted retained earnings. Yung letter C naman is to pay dissenting or withdrawing stockholders entitled to payment for their shares under the provision of this code. Yan yung appraisal right. Kasi by the way pwede lang kayo mag-exercise ng appraisal right kung merong nakalagay na provision under the law. Meaning meron kayong right na binigay ng batas na pwede kayong mag-exercise ng appraisal right. Kasi kung halimbawa hindi kayo kasama doon sa enumeration for exercise ng appraisal right, hindi ka pwedeng mag-exercise ng appraisal right. It means you cannot compel the corporation to buy your shares at fair market value. Ang recourse mo dyan or remedy mo, ibenta mo yung shares mo sa iba. Kasi ang shares naman is transferable siya. Kung may bibili nga lang. Diba? Okay, especially kung hindi siya listed sa stock exchange. Baka walang bumili. Pero ang point dyan, hindi mo pwedeng pilitin yung corporation na bilhin ang shares mo at fair market value. Pero kung halimbawa, kasama siya sa enumeration for appraisal right. O di pwede mong pilitin yung corporation na bilhin ang shares mo at fair market value. Now, punta naman tayo doon sa power to invest corporate funds in another corporation or business or for any other purpose. Ngayon, tandaan nyo, hindi mag-a-apply ito kapag ang investment ng corporate fund is reasonably necessary for the attainment ng primary purpose ng corporation. Kasi ibig sabihin nun, hindi kailangan ng stockholders approval. That is within the power of the board of director. Kaya ang voting requirement ko lang is majority ng board of director present with a valid quorum. Pero pag halimbawa yan ay investment ng corporate fund other than for primary purpose na, kailangan ko na ng stockholders ratification. Kasi sabi ng batas, kailangan ko ng majority vote ng board of director and ratified by at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Emphasize ko lang, sabi ng batas ay ratified. Hindi siya approved. Kailangan may notice of may meeting siya. Kaya bibigay kayo ng notice of meeting ng proposed investment and time and place of the meeting shall be addressed to each stockholder or member at the place of residence as shown in the book of the corporation and deposited to the addressee in the post office with postage prepaid served personally or sent electronically. Ito, dinagdag lang to sa RA 11232, wala naman sa BP 68 yan. With rules and regulation of the Commission on the use of electronic data message when allowed by the bylaws or done with the consent of the stockholder. Approval of the stockholders or members shall not be necessary. Hindi raw kailangan dito ng ratification ng stockholders kung ang investment ng corporate fund is reasonably necessary to accomplish its primary purpose as stated in the Articles of Incorporation. Kasi di ba ang nakalagay sa paragraph 2 ng article, nakalagay doon the purpose or purposes of the corporation. If the corporation has two or more purposes, you need to indicate the primary and the secondary purpose. Kaya ibig sabihin, kung ang investment ng corporate fund ay reasonably necessary for the attainment ng primary purpose ng corporation, hindi required ang stockholders approval. Okay? Pero kung secondary na yan, ay di lumalabas. Kailangan ng stockholders approval. Kasi magkakaroon kayo ng investment ng corporate fund na hindi naman yan yung primary purpose kung bakit kayo na-organize. Siyempre baka malugi, kaya dapat merong ratification ng stockholder. Okay? Next, punta naman tayo dun sa power to declare dividend. Okay, by the way, anong pinagkaiba ng cash property dividend versus the stock dividend? Una kasi, pagdating sa cash or property dividend, kapag merong delinquency, okay? Pag halimbawa, delinquent subscriber ka na, ito ang tanong. Pag delinquent subscriber ka na, entitled ka pa ba sa dividend? The answer of course is yes. Pero lahat ng right mo stockholders mawawala except the right to dividend. Yun nga lang, pag cash dividend, automatic offset. Okay, pero pag stock dividend, i-withheld siya until full payment ng entire subscription price. Ang reason dito kung bakit pwede siyang i-offset, because compensation is proper. Because the corporation and the delinquent subscriber are principal debtor and creditor with each other. That's why offsetting is allowed. Pero sa stock dividend, okay, hindi siya pwedeng i-offset because the corporation and the delinquent subscriber are not principal debtor and creditor with each other. Kaya nga di ba pag declaration of cash stock dividend, debit ka ng retained earnings, credit stock dividend distributable. Ang problema yung stock dividend distributable, hindi naman yan liability account. Hindi siya liability, di ba? Kaya, okay, walang sineset up na liability yung corporation. Pero yung delinquent subscriber, liable sa corporation. Kaya hindi siya pwedeng i-offset. And the second distinction is that sa cash or property dividend, hindi kailangan approval ng stockholders. But in stock dividend, kailangan ng approval ng 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Either in a regular special meeting called for that purpose. By the way, okay? O yun ha, bising bago mag-declare ng stock dividend, kailangan dito ng approval ng 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Now, ngayon ito yung pang-trip yan. Okay? Halimbawa, nag-declared kayo for instance ng stock dividend. Okay, kung nag-declare kayo ng stock dividend, coming from the unissued shares yan. Kasi meron pa kayong unissued. Kailangan ko ng majority vote ng Board of Directors present with a valid quorum. At kailangan ng approval ng 2/3 ng outstanding capital stock. Pero kung halimbawa, wala na kayong unissued, abay hindi ka pwedeng mag-declare ng stock dividend. Bakit? Kasi wala ka nang i-issue pa. Na-issued na lahat eh. Wala nang unissued eh. Lahat issued na. Kaya ang procedure, kailangan nyo munang mag-amend ng Article of Incorporation for the increase in capital stock bago ka makakapag-declare ng stock dividend. In that case, kailangan ko na ng majority vote ng Board of Directors and at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Okay? Hindi lang majority ng Board of Directors present with a valid quorum. Kasi nga, mag-a-apply lang yun kung unissued shares. Okay, let us proceed now sa limitation of retained earnings. Sabi ng batas, general rule, stock corporation are prohibited from retaining surplus profit in excess of 100% of the paid-up capital. Kaya pag ang paid-up capital is 10 million, ang maximum retained earnings lang na pwedeng i-maintain is up to 10 million for the unrestricted portion. Kaya kung gusto nyong magdagdagan, kailangan nyo mag-appropriate. Kasi pinag-uusapan dito, I'm referring to unrestricted retained earnings. Kaya pwede kayo magkaroon ng appropriation like definite corporate expansion project or program like appropriation for plant expansion or prohibition under loan agreement with any financial institution or creditor without his consent and such consent daw has not been secured or appropriation like example niyan is appropriation for bond redemption. Kasi di ba pag mga bonds kasi yan, may bond indenture, meron dun minsan agreement na bawal mag-declared ang corporation ng dividend. Kaya magkakaroon ka ng appropriation for bond redemption. Another is retention is necessary under special circumstances obtained in the corporation such as when there is a need for a special reserve for probable contingency. Sa accounting, minsan gumagaya ka ng appropriation for probable contingency. And ito, addition as provided for by law, like appropriation for treasury shares. Kasi nga, before the corporation can acquire its own shares, dapat may balanse kayo ng unrestricted retained earnings. Otherwise, there is violation of the trust fund doctrine. Okay? Next, let us proceed now sa power to enter into a management contract. Sabi dito, halimbawa, example natin. Halimbawa, ito si okay, A, tapos si B. Itong dalawang corporation daw, pwedeng mag-enter ng tinatawag na management contract. Wherein one corporation will directly manage another corporation. And this includes management ng all or substantially all ng corporate property. Pero bago kayo makapag-enter ng management contract, kailangan daw dito ng approval ng BOD. Pero by the way, since BOD lang ang ginamit ko, I'm referring to majority ng board of director present with a valid quorum. Okay, hindi siya binanggit na majority ng board of director. Kaya BOD rin dito. Tapos meron din siyang kailangan ng at least majority ng OS. Kaya ibig sabihin, okay, majority ng OS. Okay. OS ng both managing and manage. Kaya kailangan ko rin ng majority ng OS. Wherein si A ang tatawagin nating managing corporation, ito ay tatawagin na managed corporation. Pero sometimes daw, instead na majority ng outstanding shares dito, minsan nagiging 2/3 siya. Ang tanong kasi, kailan nagiging 2/3 ng outstanding capital stock? Okay, sabi dito nagiging 2/3 siya ng outstanding capital stock. Number 1, pag may tinatawag na interlocking directors. Example, halimbawa si A corporation to, B corporation. Ang director ng A corporation is A, B, C, D, E. Tapos si B corporation naman is A, B, C, X, Y. Ang problema, yung A corporation, majority ng director dito na si ABC, nagko-constitute din as majority directors ng B corporation. Kaya sabi ng batas, sa part ng B corporation, instead na majority ng OS, kailangan ko na ng 2/3 ng outstanding capital stock. Pangalawa is yung tinatawag na interlocking stockholder. Kasi halimbawa, si X, stockholder dito sa A corporation. Stockholder din si B corporation. Eh, ang problema, meron ka raw na more than 1/3 ng voting powers ng managing corporation. Kaya sa part ng managed corporation, instead na majority, dapat gawin mo siyang 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Kaya yan ang exception na the management contract must be approved by stockholders of the managed corporation owing at least 2/3 of the total outstanding capital stock entitled to vote or by at least 2/3 of the members in the case of non-stock corporation under the following. Yun nga, interlocking stockholder and interlocking directors. Sa interlocking stockholders kasi sabi dyan, when a stockholder or stockholders representing the same interests of both the managing and the managed corporation owns or control more than one-third of the total outstanding capital stock entitled to vote of the managing corporation. Pag interlocking director naman, when a majority of the members ng BOD daw of managing also constitute majority of the members of the board of director of the managed corporation. Tulad dito, ABC, majority directors ng A corporation which is the managing, nagko-constitute din sila as majority director ng managed corporation. Kaya sa part ni B, dapat instead na majority ng OS, ganun siyang two-third of the outstanding capital stock. Ngayon, ang general rule is that no management contract shall be entered into for period longer than 5 years for any one term. Kaya maximum period ng management contract as a rule is 5 years. Pero sabi niyan that such service contract or expiration, okay, or operation agreement which relate to exploration, development, exploitation, or utilization of natural resources may be entered into for such period as may be provided by the pertinent laws or regulation. Now, okay, next. Okay, punta tayo sa adoption ng bylaws. Okay, mapapansin mo, itong provision na to, ni-remove sa RA okay, 11232. Wala na siya. Nandun yan sa BP 68. Sabi dyan, every corporation formed within 1 month after receipt of official notice of the issuance of its certificate of incorporation by the SEC. Okay, adopt a code of bylaws for its government not inconsistent with the corporation code. Okay, actually, tinanggal lang yung period. Pero required pa rin kayo na mag-adapt ng bylaws. Okay, kung halimbawa, hindi kayo nag-submit ng bylaws upon okay, filing of the article. Kasi dalawang option may, either mag-adapt ka ng bylaws before incorporation or mag-adapt ka ng bylaws after incorporation. Sabi ko, pag nag-adapt ka ng bylaws before incorporation, pag submit mo ng article of incorporation, naka-attach na kagad yung corporate bylaws. Pero pag nag-adapt ka ng bylaws after incorporation, it means nag-adapt ka ng bylaws after the issuance na ng certificate of incorporation. Kasi ang sabi nga ng batas, pag natanggap mo na yung certificate of incorporation, dapat within 30 days or 1 month, mag-adapt ka ng corporate bylaws not okay, which is consistent with law. Otherwise, ground dyan for the revocation ng Certificate of Incorporation by the SEC pursuant to PD 902-8, which is an act creating the Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay, the bylaws now shall be signed by stockholder or members voting for them, kept in the principal office of the corporation, a copy thereof, duly certified by a majority of director, trustee, and countersigned by the secretary of the corporation shall be filed with the commission and attached to the original articles of incorporation, subject to the inspection of the stockholder or members during the office hours. Ngayon, eto, kailangan nyo ng certification coming from the appropriate government agency. Okay, sabi dyan, the SEC daw shall not accept for filing the bylaws or any amendment unless accompanied by a certificate of appropriate government agency to the effect that such bylaw or amendment are in accordance with law. Kaya kung bangko yan, dapat mayroong okay, certification coming from the Bangko Sentral. Okay, banking institution, ganun din, building and association, trust company. Insurance company naman sa Insurance Commission. Public utilities, educational institution sa CHED or DepEd or other special corporation governed by special laws. Okay, ngayon, ilan ang voting requirement natin for adoption ng bylaws? Before incorporation, dapat ito ay approved and signed ng all incorporators. Pero pag nag-adapt ka ng corporate bylaws after incorporation, kailangan ko ng majority ng outstanding capital stock. Ayan, majority of the OS. Kung non-stock naman siya, edi majority ng members. Okay? Now, punta tayo sa content ng bylaws. Sabi dyan na private corporation may provide the following in its bylaws daw. Time, place, and manner of calling and conducting regular special meeting of the director trustee. The time and manner of calling and conducting regular special meeting of the stockholder or member thereof. May napansin ka ba? Yung place nawawala dito. Bakit? Kasi ito ay directors meeting. Ito stockholders meeting. Ang tanong, saan kasi dapat ang directors meeting? Sabi ng batas is anywhere, even outside of the Philippines. Kaya pwede kayo magkaroon ng meeting abroad. Samantalang dito sa stockholders meeting, it must be within the city or municipality where the principal place of business is located. And if practicable, it must be in the principal place of business. Pero for purpose of this provision daw, okay, lumalabas, for purpose of this provision, Metro Manila are considered city or municipality. Okay? Kaya halimbawa, nakalagay sa article niyo is nasa Makati City, nag-meeting kayo for instance sa Quezon City, then proper venue. Pero kung ang inyong address sa article is Makati City, nag-meeting kayo sa Bulacan or sa Cebu, that is improper venue. Kasi that is outside Metro Manila. Okay? Now, next, sabi dyan, pag dating kasi sa membership meeting for non-stop, medyo nag-expand dyan anywhere in the Philippines. Even outside the city or municipality where the principal place of business is located. Next, the required quorum. Okay ng stockholder. Okay, or members. Then yung required quorum nila and the manner of voting therein. The modes by which a stockholder, member, director, or trustee may attend meeting and cast their vote. Pwede nyo kasing ilagay sa bylaws kung attend siya. Okay, proxy. Okay. Paano ba ang botohan natin? Okay. And cast their votes daw. Okay. Form for proxies ng stockholder. By the way, class, mapapansin mo, walang nakalagay na proxies for director. Kasi bawal ang proxy pag directors meeting. Okay, bakit? Kasi mababiolate yung concept na ng law on agency. What has been delegated can no longer be further delegated. Biro mo, dinelegate mo na nga lang, dinelegate ng stockholder sa board ang pag-manage ng corporation, i-delegate pa ng director. Kaya ang rule is that the stranger cannot substitute the decision power of the board. Okay? Kaya bawal ang proxy pagdating sa directors meeting. Pero allowed siya sa stockholders meeting. Pero syempre baka tanongin mo, sir, bakit sa stockholders meeting pwede ang proxy? Kasi ang reason dyan is that, okay, ang reason is that, sabi ng Supreme Court, whatever a man may do in person, it can be done through an agent. Kaya lahat ng pwede mong gawin in person, pwedeng agent ang mag-act in your behalf. Huwag lang siyang strictly personal or prohibited by law. Okay, ang problema, ang right ng stockholders, pwede mong i-delegate. Pero yung lumalabas dun sa board of directors, hindi eh. Dinelegate na lang kasi sa kanila yung right na yan, yung right to manage the corporation, i-delegate pa nila sa iba. Kaya bawal ang proxy pagdating sa directors meeting. Okay, another is the director trustee qualification. Pwede kayo maglagay ng qualification. Pero kung ilagay nyo kunwari sa provision ng bylaws na okay, to become a director, you don't need to be an owner of at least one share of stock. Void yun. Kasi it will conflict sa provision under RA 11232. Duties and responsibility, guidelines for setting the compensation. Hindi kayo pwede maglagay na baka ang compensation ng entitled ang director sa compensation ng 20% ng net income before tax ng preceding year. Kasi nilimit ng batas yan, 10% lang ng net income before tax ng preceding year. Okay, maximum number of other board representation that an independent director or trustee may have, which shall in no case be more than the number prescribed by the commission. Now, question, paano kung naglagay ka ng provision na To become a director, you must be an owner of at least 10 shares of stock. Valid siya. Kasi ang minimum lang naman, wala na makalagay, minimum is at least 1. Kaya pwede siyang dagdagan. Pero kung ano, naglagay kayo na pag if you are already a director of another corporation, a directly competitor ng corporation, lumalabas, disqualified ka. Is that valid? The answer is yes, on the ground of vested interest. K, merong case yan, yung case ni Gokong Wei versus Court of Appeal. Kasi ang sabi ng Supreme Court dun, may mga instances kasi na dinidisclose during the board meeting. Na ang intention ng board, wag nang lumabas yung information sa boardroom. Kaya lumalabas, okay, as much as possible kasi the court will not interfere with management prerogative. Internal affairs ng corporation. Kasi ba't naman makikialam yung court dyan? Unless you can show proof that there is a direct violation ng constitutional and statutory right. The time for holding the annual election of director of or trustee and the mode of manner of giving notice thereof. Manner of election or appointment and term of office of all officers. By the way, class, hindi kayo pwedeng maglagay ng provision sa bylaws regarding terms of office ng director. Because the terms of office of director is already fixed by law, which is 135. 1 for stock, 3 for non-stock, and 5 years for non-stock educational corporation. Ngayon, kung babasahin mo yung BP, pala, BP 68, ito yung dati original na provision dito. Binanggit lang qualification, duties, compensation of directors or trustee and officers. Dito in-expand lang siya. Another, the penalty for violation ng bylaws. In case of stock corporation, the manner of issuing stock certificate. Pwede ba kayo maglagay ng provision sa bylaws na pagbayad na yung 30% or 50% ng entire subscription price, then pwede nang i-issue ang certificate of stock. Answer, hindi siya allowed. Kasi ang sabi ng batas, no certificate of stock shall be issued until and unless the entire subscription price is fully paid. Okay, and of course, such other matters as may be necessary daw for the proper or convenient transaction of its corporate affairs for the promotion of good governance and anti-graft and corruption measures. Now, pwede rin kayo maglagay nga pala sa bylaws ng arbitration clause. Okay? Kasi di ba pwede nyo ilagay yung arbitration agreement, okay, doon sa article of incorporation. Pwede rin sa corporate bylaws or such other documents. Okay? Actually, in-explain ko na before kung bakit merong arbitration agreement. Para pag may mga conflict between the stockholders and directors, hindi kayo dediretso kagad sa korte. Kasi dapat idaan nyo muna sa voluntary arbitrator. Now, okay, sa amendment naman, sabi dyan, whenever the bylaws are amended or new bylaws are adopted, the corporation shall file with the commission such amended or new bylaws. And if applicable daw, the stockholders or members resolution authorizing the delegation of power to amend and or adopt new bylaws duly certified under oath by the corporate secretary and majority of the directors or trustees. Now, the amended or new bylaw shall only be effective upon issuance by the commission of a certification. Okay, that the same is in accordance with this code. Now, may tanong ako, ano bang pinagkaiba ng Article of Incorporation sa bylaws? Now, unang distinction, ng Article of Incorporation kasi nagsaserve as contractual relation between the state and the incorporators. While corporate bylaws are internal rules of government of the corporation for proper management. Second distinction, ang Article of Incorporation condition precedent para maka-acquire yung corporation ng separate juridical personality. Okay, samantalang ang corporate bylaws ay condition subsequent because the corporation can acquire separate because the corporation can comply it after the SEC already issue a certificate of incorporation. Kasi pwede mong i-comply yan after issuance ng certificate. Pangatlong distinction, pag nag-amend kayo ng Article of Incorporation, ang voting requirement is majority ng Board of Director and written vote or assent ng at least 2/3 ng outstanding capital stock. Pagdating naman sa bylaws, pag nagkaroon kayo ng amendment nito, majority ng BOD and majority ng outstanding capital stock. Tapos another, kailan nagtutok effect ang amendment ng Article of Incorporation? Answer, ang rule is upon approval by the SEC. However, if the SEC failed to act within 6 months, consider siyang nagtok effect upon filing. Pero tandaan nyo, pagdating sa amendment ng bylaws, okay, magtutok effect lang siya, kailan? From the time the SEC issue a certification that the corporate bylaws are consistent with law. In accordance with law dapat. Kaya lumalabas hanggat hindi nag-i-issue ang SEC ng certification, okay, that the corporate bylaws are in accordance with law, wala siyang okay effectivity. Hindi siya magtutok effect. Ngayon, let us summarize. Ilan ba ang voting requirements for amendment ng bylaws? General rule is major. Majority ng board of directors and at least majority ng outstanding capital stock. Pero tandaan nyo, pwedeng i-delegate ng board of directors sa stockholder ang pag-amend ng bylaws. Pwedeng i-delegate ng stockholder sa board of director ang pag-amend ng bylaws by vote ng at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. Kung non-stock, 2/3 of members. Ngayon, para naman ma-revoke ang power delegated to the board, kailangan ko lang ng presence ng majority ng OS. Actually, madali naman siyang tandaan eh. Mahirap i-delegate kasi 2/3 ng OS pero madali siyang ma-revoke, which is majority lang ng outstanding capital stock. Okay? Okay, yung Ultra Vires Act, okay, i-discuss ko na lang ito sa inyo for next meeting. Bali, stop tayo sa Ultra. Stop tayo doon sa bylaws. Di-discuss ko for next meeting is Ultra Vires. Okay? Good night. Goodbye and good night. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.